The following tutorial is brought to you by WholeLoops.com.
It's production time. I'm Reid Stefan, realest puppet in the game. Today, we're talking about 5 tools that make mixing easier. I'm talking about plugins that give you some insight and clarity into what's coming out of your speakers. No pun intended. So let's jump right into it. My very first tip is it's extremely helpful to have a second display plugged into your computer so you could see your Ableton or whatever DAW session while you're looking at your analyzer plugins full screen. To help you understand what's going on, it's just so much more practical to have it up the whole time so you can always glance at it versus just checking it out at the end. So my number one recommendation is get a second computer screen and dedicate it to your analyzer plugins. But let's take a look and listen to this thing in action. Check it out.
Used to grind on the late night, staying up just to get my dreams right. Do it all for the highlights. No one else, you and me is for life. Looking back in my long way up, you were there by my side as I came up. Take it back to the only. You were there, never lonely.
So as you can see, we've got a rainbow road right here. No, I'm just kidding. We've got a meter that shows you not only frequency with color, whereas the brighter colors are higher frequencies, but it also gives you a little bit of a view of your dynamics. All those bumps that looked like mountains on a map showed you where your dynamics were and how high they were compared to the lower parts of your sound. Up here you have an EQ. I guess I could say a spectrum analyzer. The next thing that I really want to talk to you about is over here on my desk. This is just a whole different beast because this is a plugin that comes with a hardware. So I guess you could call it a plug out. Now this is called the Clarity M Stereo by TC Electronic, and as you can see, it's a wideness meter and also a loudness meter.
Used to grind on the late night, staying up just to get my dreams right. Do it all for the highlights. No one else, you and me is for life. Looking back in my long way up, you were there by my side as I came up.
And now, even though this is a little bit redundant, you could see your LUFS and your wideness over here. I find that this meter just looks really sharp and clear. One of the things that I find myself using this little this little wideness meter for a lot is seeing where in the mix the width is coming from. Like for example, we could solo our acapella and see that we're not doing too much wideness here during the lead.
Little puppet with a big dream. Got a one-way to California.
Except for when the background vocals come in. And then we could check out the instrumental. And there's lots of width in the instrumental. We could check out how the 808 is mixed. Just solo the 808 right down the center. So, considering this thing is in the $300 ballpark, which isn't too far off from what some of these plugins can cost, it's actually my top pick for an analyzer, considering you get a hardware counterpart. And this thing connects via USB, but they also give you this absolute bird's nest of an adapter cable so that you can plug in any sort of analog sound source too. But I prefer to just keep it clean and use the one USB cable.
Do your drums sound like floppy trash? Have you wasted countless hours trying to get that knocking mix down with no results? Introducing WholeLoops Drum Sauce, the brand new preset that instantly processes your drums group into a clean, organic, and hard-hitting sauce. WholeLoops Drum Sauce is available now for Waves Studio Rack and Ableton stock plugins, only at WholeLoops.com.
So that's the TC Electronic Clarity M Stereo. Now, my fourth tip is something that I covered more in depth in my last tutorial, which was about buses, returns, and auxes. And as you can see, I'm using what's called a PreMaster Channel here on my session to hold my mastering plugin, which is Ozone 9, running the Ozone Master Sauce preset. And even here in Ozone 9, you have those three really useful meters right here in Ozone 9, not just 9, but any of them. And so you don't need any of this extra stuff to be monitoring your stuff, especially if you have Ozone. So this is another really, really major meter that I find myself looking a lot, especially while I'm adjusting the parameters here in Ozone. It's nice to just keep your eyes right here. But I digress. I have Ozone here on a PreMaster channel for a very specific reason, because down here at the bottom of my Ableton session, I have a reference mix, and I'm just referencing an old version of the song from a couple months ago.
Staying up just to get my dreams right. Do it all for the highlight.
And the demo mix was a little bit loud, but the beauty of this setup is you can run your demo mix through all of these analyzer plugins and get your analyzer readout as you're switching back and forth, so you can see the difference in LUFS and wideness or RMS or whatever sort of metering you want to use to check. So that's tip number 4, is set up a PreMaster bus to reference any outside mixes or demo mixes or whatever you want to check out through your analyzers, because that extra little bit of information the analyzers gives you is extremely useful. Now, tip number 5 for how I analyze my mix. This plugin is so critical in this day and age. This is called the Loudness Penalty Analyzer, and this is by Meter Plugs, and this shows you where you're hitting on all the major streaming sources. So let's click on Spotify.
Used to grind on the late night. Staying up just to get my
Turn my speakers down a little bit so you can hear me. So not only that, but you can preview what it would sound like on Spotify. Turn my speaker back up.
You were there by my side as a dreamer.
Preview, and off.
You were there, never lonely.
So this is an extremely helpful way to calculate any penalty that you might be getting from the loudness of your mix, and to hear what your song would sound like in an absolutely finished format, which would be streaming it off of YouTube or Spotify or whatever you want to listen to. So that's the Loudness Penalty Analyzer, a super helpful plugin that I've been using to finish up a lot of my music recently. I don't put it on the PreMaster, I put it with all the other analyzer plugins here on the master, and up here on my master channel, just IZotope Ozone 9, running the Ozone Master Sauce preset, available now at wholeloops.com. So there you have it, my top 5 tools that make mixing easier. I hope you found all the tips, tricks, and analyzers in this tutorial useful, and I'll put a link to all the analyzers and plugins that you saw in the description, and catch you guys next time with another tutorial. Peace out.